And once again, welcome to the Mike Prince Show. Of course, I'm Dr. Mike Prince. As we try to do each and every week, we try to keep you informed on the latest and the greatest that's going on. Tonight's show is going to be a special edition, of course. I've been joined by two men who are going to bring a different point of view, if you will, on certain situations that we experience as HBCUs as a whole. Of course, I have the voice of Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils, and that is none other than my good friend, comrade, and brother Lee Hall. Lee Hall, how you doing this evening, sir?
Doing fine. Thank you. Always good to be with you.
All right, and we also have Brother Anthony Brownlow. Brother Anthony Brownlow, how are you doing this evening, sir?
Hey, I'm fine, sir. Thank you for the invitation.
All right. We are mighty glad to have you guys here. And what we try to do with each and every week, as we tell people, we're not trying to be the big boys. We're just trying to be people that take care of home and maybe a little bit beyond by some regional touch and coverage. And, of course, we have a vested interest in the Southwestern Athletic Conference as a whole, as well as Prairie View A&M University and all its brother and sister schools that are attached. And with that being said, a couple of weeks ago, the two institutions got a chance to get together. Prairie View victorious over Mississippi Valley State in football. Final score was 56-21. My comrade, Brother Lee Hall, had the opportunity of sharing the play-by-play action on the Valley State side. And, of course, I was able to take care of business on the Prairie View side. And one thing that we always do when we dialogue, just because I look to Brother Hall as a brother, friend, even a mentor in certain areas, on what are the X's and the O's. And being a former Southwestern Athletic Conference baseball player, all-conference baseball player, I played at Prairie View in the time that was considered the dark ages of Prairie View. And with that being said, it seems that the tides are changing. One thing that I want to stress to people and understand, this is not a bash program, this is not a bash episode, but a lot of people need to understand that Mississippi Valley State is still a relatively young organization, institution, however you want to identify it. 1950 was its year of conception. That's not a long time. There's still some growing pains. And with that being said, Lee, I'll let you reflect first, and then we'll be followed by Brother Brownlow to where we are and how things can move forward from here.
We should reflect on. Are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Yes. We should reflect on what you want me to talk about.
Well, just reflect on the direction in how you see the Mississippi Valley institution going versus to where Prairie View is going, and how Prairie View was at one point, and I can say this even with some pride, considered the laughingstock of NCAA Division I athletics, but has turned that corner to where it's becoming a program of respectability. And you and I have had quote-unquote off-the-record talks. For me personally, I believe that Valley should focus on becoming a school that puts emphasis on basketball first, football second, and I personally wouldn't have a problem if they did one or two things, either invest more money into the football or even do away with the program and focus on letting basketball be your sport of financial gain, if you will.
When you look at football, we are a nation-crazed football fan. And not just because it's football, contact sport, and entertainment, because when you look around and on the larger scale, it's about the money, it's about the community, it's about enrollment. If you have a good football program, a good basketball team, you make it to the tournaments where the lights are bright, then your enrollment will jump. Your enrollment will jump, I mean your money will jump. So I'm not sure that many schools could survive and grow without football. Football is not just something for the community, but also means enrollment, and that is big. I think the biggest window to a university is going to be the football program and the band. You know, we're talking about advertising. It costs a lot of money to do that. But in your sports and in your band, you get the advertising all the time. Folks come to ball games. Sometimes you don't know. If the team is not doing well, the band is doing well, then sometime after halftime, they would leave. So I think that as Valley State is doing, they're trying to grow the band. They're doing the best they can with football, but it's no secret that when it comes to the athletic budget and the recruiting budget, that is one of the smallest in the country, even smaller than some Division II schools. So whatever it takes, it got to be community first. We do a program here, and we had someone to come across this morning and just say that, hey, we support Valley State, win or lose. And we have Anthony on, and Anthony is with Valley State. I said with Valley State, lives in Washington, D.C., and he just one of the most knowledgeable fans about Valley State as you can think of. Sometimes you think that he's at the ball game, but he's listening or watching in D.C. He understands the players, understands what Valley is going through. So I'll shift to Anthony now and get his perspective on what you said about perhaps Valley State football and basketball converting.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hall and Dr. Prince. I am, I've been following Valley football since maybe 1982. Both my parents went to MVSU, both my siblings. So we have 5 degrees out of my home from that school or that institution of higher learning. And so to sort of like reemphasize what Mr. Hall stated, that football is a branding opportunity. And historically, since I've been following Valley for so long, I can recall the years when the football program has been well or has been good, that we have seen an influx with the enrollment. In addition, I'm here in D.C. now, and so many people can tell me all the stats from that 80-14 team, 500 yards of offense, that third, and just they know about Itabena based off of the success of that particular institution, as well as the Ashley Ambrose, as well as the Vincent Browns, and of course, Jerry Rice and Willie Titan. They know about that institution because of that. So that's a branding component that's there in association with the program. Dr. Prince, you alluded, that you would make the recommendation or suggestion to sort of like do away with the program. Well, I think even your institution, thought about it, but, they had to reinvest. They had to invest, like in any scenario. Me and my, academic pursuits. I had to, if I wanted to be better professionally, I had to go to undergrad. Then I had to go to grad school. And so, like with any program or any scenario, if you're married, you got to invest if you want a great marriage. And so, what you all did with Frazier, Coach Frazier, I think he was the catalyst. I'm not sure, I wasn't on campus, but that was, as an outsider, seemed like he was the catalyst to move you all in a different direction. And what he did, as I stated, as an outsider, this is what appeared. He convinced the administration, the alums, and the students to invest. Now, he was a great coach. He came there, everywhere he had, prior to, the Bowie State, they were in the cellar. He won there. Prairie View was in the cellar. He won there. And he started the ball moving in regards to, getting an investment sort of attitude. And so I think, and Mr. Hall would agree with me on this one, that once we get, the administration to buy into the alums, the community, to just buy into investing into, that particular program, that being football, we'll see a different perspective because we know it's a cash cow. That's what football is, particularly in the South. Now, not as much here in the Mid-Atlantic to the East. No, football is not that relevant or as relevant, but in the South, football is king. And so in turn, I would never want to disband the program because I think it's a cultural component too associated with this. It's a gathering mechanism as well. And so there's so many benefits I just think that we have to come up with a strategic plan, that we as a community associated with the institution will buy into and consistently contribute to. And I think we'll, just like you, there at Prairie View, have seen a tremendous change. And, and I know that, that there were people that were hiding, that were not saying PV, but all of a sudden Frazier shows up. And I've never seen, I'm here in D.C. now, running into PV everywhere. And even at my church here in D.C., there's so many people, PV. And I didn't see those people prior to Frazier. So it just informs me. My little cousin is on his way to Prairie View on a baseball scholarship. And he was there and he visited. And man, he and my uncle enjoyed the facility because there's investment. At the end of the day, in any scenario, you have to invest if you want to transform or to see a different, outcome.
Very well stated, gentlemen. And let me go back and on the record, I did say that, to possibly disband football, and I was even talking about possibly going down a division. Would that be a black eye to keep football where you are competitive? I know bottom line is investing. And when Prairie View did disband football in 1990, when they disbanded the football in 1990, I was on the campus as a student athlete at the time. We then rallied together as a student athletic body, said, bring it back and we'll do what it takes. And yes, Frazier began the pendulum turning around in 2004, but it was a group of dedicated student athletes that was willing to lay it down for the love of the game and for the love of an institution to help see the new facilities come to fruition as we see today. So even though we know money is the king motivator in change coming, but it also starts with the culture change, and the acceptance is I have to work with what I have till I get what I need. And sir?
That investment started back in, you said 1990, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and it is still going on with that commitment from the students today. I believe you said, I think I read it somewhere, that even in the new facility, the state-of-the-art that you all have, I think with some of the student tuition or some of the money they had also went into developing that stadium as it is today?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is a fact, and as a matter of fact, there was an alumni challenge each and every Prairie View, and it's the same at I'm going to say majority. I won't say all, but it's the same issue at majority of our HBCUs. We, for whatever reason, do not give back to our institutions. Prairie View is proud to boast the fact that we have 60,000 graduates walking on planet Earth right now that hold the purple and gold banner high, that Prairie View produces productive people. We say that with pride. We cheer up at the school alma mater song, and we get pumped up when we hear the fight song. But out of the 60,000 graduates, we have less than 5,000 that are giving back some type of funding on an annual basis. Brothers, that is under 10%. And yes, we are our worst enemies. We are our worst enemies. We keep talking about how other people don't want to see us make it. You would think would be the motivator to gather our little coin together so we can prove them wrong. And no matter if your colors are purple and gold, green and white, blue and white, black and gold, that is a common factor across the HBCU board.
And I think Anthony said earlier about how it's a culture here. Former Valley State Athletic Director Alonzo Hardy said it's a religion here in the South. In the South, you talk about Prairie View, stopping football for 1 year. You know, they did it at the University of Alabama, Birmingham at one point, and it lasted about a year, and they brought it back too. And when you're talking about a school that's really struggling with enrollment, had a 9-year slide in enrollment, Dr. The president of Mississippi Valley State University came in and he turned it around after a 9-year slide. So that's in the right direction. So we talk about, if you start in football, you think about perhaps the student body that you're going to lose. Folks come to schools many times because of athletics. When you go through the airport, and we had a great time back in '85 I believe '85, '86 when it was that Valley State played Duke, and they talk about the NCAA tournament, they talk about that ball game. Even today, when Valley almost upset Duke. But if you have on something green, Valley State colors, and you go through the different airports, they don't talk about Valley State versus Duke. They talk about Jerry Rice.
Right.
You know, and so that again that's the first thing that comes to your mind. We've had some success over and over in basketball, SWAC championship, never SWAC championship in football. But when you go through the airports and other places, regardless of whether you're at Alcorn or whether you're in D.C. or Prairie View, they're going to talk about Valley State and Jerry Rice. That's the impact of football at Valley State.
And Dr. Prince, Mr. Hall, you know, the other thing, too, is there's an economic influx associated with football. Even in the community of Greenwood, you know, I would say along the I-82, the Highway 82 corridor, from Greenville to maybe Winona. For homecoming, you have this game, you have all of these individuals who are returning. You start playing with economic dollars as well. When you play at Jackson State near the Bena, I mean, you can clearly see that there is a pool of people that have showed up in the Mississippi Delta that wouldn't be there traditionally. When a Southern comes to Itta Bena, you have a similar experience. So, you know, I think, you know, the university needs to leverage that also in regards to, you know, getting investments or getting the local cities in the particular area to invest in, you know, the program, because everybody involved benefits. And so these are the kinds of conversations we need to have with our Chamber of Commerce there in the Mississippi Delta. They all benefit. It's not just, you know, the institution itself benefiting from, you know, football being promising. The other thing I'd like to speak to, Dr. Prince, was you alluded to how we're not giving. You illuminated that, you know, you have 60,000 alums and only 5,000, you know, are consistently contributing. Well, I would, you know, the statistics really show that that's not even reflective only in regards to HBCUs. That's with just black people in general, whether they've gone to, you know, University of California or wherever. We just don't give. And some of that is it's a sociological issue that we as a community have to wrestle with in regards to giving back, that we need to really entertain if we want our institutions or our scenarios to become better, that we have to start teaching this to our children so that they can be in the frame of mind to understand that, hey, it is of necessity that you give back, whether you're at an HBCU or whether you're at a historically white institution. We have to start planning that in our children's minds so that when that opportunity does come, or when they have graduated from that institution, you know, that they will turn right back around and reinvest.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The economic impact, Valley State has an annual $19 million economic impact in LaFleur County.
Did you say 19 million? 19 million?
$19 million economic impact in LaFleur County.
Well, Prairie View has a $33 million impact in Waller County. And Lee Hall is aware of this, but Brother Brownlow, you just alluded to something that I'm a big component on, community involvement, community partnership. I've been fortunate enough to serve here in the Waller County area 3 consecutive terms as a board trustee for Waller Independent School District, which is one of the stronger financial school districts, is the strongest financial school district in the county. Okay. We have over 800 employees and a $70 million budget that we're responsible for and obtaining. And you're so right that when you're tying these loose ends together, there are two entities that I strongly believe that could draw a community together quick, fast, and in a hurry, and that's athletics and music. And athletically, when Prairie View started the construction on this beautiful edifice that we call home now, our current athletic director, who is a Mississippi Valley alum, Ashley Robinson, he was at a crossroad on where would they play their home games while this stadium was under construction. It was an honor for me, and I never really made this public or anything because that's not how I operate, but we're talking about something, how we can make an impact even when we don't think we can make an impact. It was an honor for me to open up the gateway to allow these young men and women from Prairie View A&M University to share the stadium for this local high school while the new stadium for Prairie View was being built. I made the suggestion to the superintendent, made the suggestion to athletic director. They both asked would I be there at the meeting, because when people don't communicate, they will assume a whole bunch of things, and we're all old enough to know what assume has been translated over the years. And when this relationship was begun, it was a lot of undercurrent things that were beginning. Healing started taking place we're still in the South here as well, in Texas, where healing from good old boy networks were being buried. I'm also directly tied to a $33 million school that is being built right in my community right now, a brand new elementary school, where I've had to fight single-handedly on a school board, where I'm the only African-American on this school board, and got this school built in this community, which is going to do what? Create an economic impact. So when we understand that we do have resources together, we just have to learn how to pull them together. When I was just at Mississippi Valley State a couple of weeks ago, I was pleasantly surprised, and I think I even shared this with Brother Hall. You all have a lot more to offer in Itta Bena than Prairie View does. As far as economic, there is no reason why that message should not be getting out there. And sometimes, unfortunately, the powers that be that sit in the big house, if you will, at our institutions are so disconnected from the community, they don't even know where to go to create that economic trickle.
Well, Dr. Bynum, who's the president here at Valley State, when he came in a few years ago, he was active. He was present in the churches, in the chambers, city hall, county government. If you see him, he's everywhere. And that, as a matter of fact, helped with the uptick in enrollment. It came out in the paper a few weeks ago. He said we got to change the culture at Valley State. Many times you come to places, and if you don't believe, but if you believe and you change the culture, as he said, and as you're doing at Valley State, then it'll begin to turn around. But when it comes to athletics, somewhere, somehow, you've got to get the money in to put it to the program. Where it's going to come from, who's going to do it, that's beyond, that's not without my control. But it's going to take money coming from somewhere. The state, one way, though, is, as Coach Morgan used to say, it's good to get the donations if you want the donation. But to use his phrase, he said, put some butt in the seat. Meaning that on Saturday afternoon, then you got to come to the ball games. Come to the ball games, come there, you pack the stadium out, and then you get that money coming in, and then you can do that. It can help with the recruiting, to go places, to get players, to bring them to the campus, and see the campus on those highlight evenings, the highlight nights. And make them want to come back. When they go in and come back, sometimes kids come from Chicago or Texas. They bring other students with them as well. So it's all tied in together. Athletics, when you're winning, is going to increase your enrollment.
I can even take it one step. Winning, of course, changes the culture, but being competitive changes the culture too. Because when you're competitive, you say, hey, man, we're 1 or 2 players away. When you're recruiting that young man, that young woman, you're the missing piece that we need. You're that thing that's going to push us over the hump. Come on and be a part of something special. Let's create something. And I told you, in order to get people to see you different, you have to learn how to see yourself different. And you have to acknowledge this, regardless of what your product is. We all are salespersons. We're all salespersons. And what I'm selling is going to be based on the vibe that I give to whoever I'm in connection with, whether it's the Valley brand, whether it's the Panther brand, whether it's Greenwood, G-Line brand, the Open Mic brand. Whatever that brand is, if you're communicating with people, within 10 seconds, they're going to know whether or not you believe in the brand that you're supposed to be representing.
Well, speaking of that, around the program, first of all, I heard Coach Dan Muller at Mississippi State say one upon a time, when teams are losing, fans are coughing, they call and they're talking, they hurt. And he says, but no one hurts more so than the players. Out there, blood, sweat, and tears out there. They're the ones that are being watched. No one hurts more than them. Talking to Coach Compton at the press conference the other day, he talking about believing, went down with 0-5 in the season. He says that in the locker room, kids began to cry. That's on the press conference. So they began to cry. He said, well, that's kind of what you want to see. And you're talking about being a player or so away. Even this ball game this past weekend can be recruited to. Even though Valley State lost by 2 points, the same line you just used a while ago said, listen, if we had you, we could be winners. We could beat Jackson State. We could do this. We could do that. But I think I know the coaches, and I'm repeating what Coach Compton said. They believe in this program. He said, and he chopped it up as saying that we have a 6-game season left. The other 5 games, they're gone, but we have a 6-game season. He likes what he sees in the future. You understand there are some challenges, but he feels that he can do things. They can win some games this season. So the belief is there, and it has to be. If not, you're right. You'll see when you hit the field if they don't believe in themselves anymore.
Well, Dr. Prince and Mr. Hall, what has been really amazing to me is just watching even how the conference has evolved or is transforming. And I base it off of this. I looked at that stadium, Alabama State, open up a few years back, and that was a flagship stadium. That stadium looked better than some 1A stadiums. And then to turn around and look at the Stadium Prairie View opened this year. And what was so beautiful about both scenarios is when they opened the stadium, they got national television coverage. And then not only did they get national television coverage, but the stadiums were jam-packed. And so, and they saw competitive games in both instances. And what that did or what that does for a young man or a young lady who's watching from afar is I want to be a part of that. And so what was so amazing, and the argument gets substantiated even when we consider we have the University of Colorado coming to Itta to play our women. Why? We're opening an enhanced venue to play basketball in. And so it speaks to the significance of facilities. And so, and when you can pitch that I have this particular facility, that's confidence speaking too, non-verbally. When you show this is where we play or this is where we compete at in this setting. Now, when people see, because I applaud Prairie View, I think they did a better job than Alabama State because when you all opened that stadium, you went through the locker room, you went through the weight room, you had you had Ashley to go through and just walk through, your president did the initial, particulars, and but then Ashley took over, and you walked all through. And this is, on social media, live. And so it's a pitch without even making a pitch. And so my cousin was just moved by your campus when he went there to see all of those particular facilities. And so those facilities speak confidence too, Dr. Prince.
Yes, sir.
And to double back onto something you mentioned too about playing at that stadium in Waller County. I think it's Waller County's football stadium. I'm not for sure.
Waller High School. Waller High School.
Yes. And you're exactly right, because that fostered and that cultivated relationship.
Yes.
That in turn invited those individuals who had no affiliation with Prayer Review to come to the table and to see Prayer Review in a different light. To see that Prayer Review is a major entity in this community, and we all can benefit.
I'll make you laugh, Brother Brownlow. In the meetings, when they were checking the status of the new stadium being constructed for Prairie View, they say, "Are you sure they're going to be ready? We'd love to have them for one more year." so they enjoyed the relationship, and they were blessed financially from the residue that was left from that Prairie View influx of people being at that stadium. So when you start creating enough wealth for both sides of the table, color becomes less of a factor, because then the only color that is of concern, and no pun intended toward Valley, but it's the color of green. And if I can get enough green out of this situation, then it's a win-win for everyone involved.
Exactly.
So we're on the lines with Brother Lee Hall and Mr. Brownlow. And we're on the Mike Prince Show, and we're just talking about the power of HBCU and its future, if you will. Now, gentlemen, you're aware, of course, of the Southwest Athletic Conference. All three involved on this side have SWAC ties, if you will. And you just, ironically, Brother Brownlow, happen to be in MEAC country right now.
Yes.
And and both of these conferences represent the FCS, and they had to go through some major hurdles, if you will, to get recognized on this level. And we do know, as we said, football is a branding, advertising mechanism for all institutions that decide to have football as one of their sports. Do you believe that the requirements to play with the big boys, if you will, has been at a cost that you can't recover from, for HBCUs in particular, to try to compete with these other FBS and FCS standard schools?
Well, I'll chime in first, Mr. Holmes. I am not for the money games, to be honest with you, from this particular perspective. South Carolina State this year played 3 straight FCS or FBS games. And I don't know if they had any injuries. I don't. But I do know that the branding, South Carolina State, year in, year out, will field a good team, which will probably compete annually for the MEAC championship, right? But somebody who does not know South Carolina State, they played Louisiana Tech, they played, I think, Central Florida, and they played Clemson. Somebody who does not know South Carolina State would be like, there's no way in the world I'm going to that school. And psychologically, what does it do to the players? You hope that losing 3 straight contests, in the manner in which they lost them, psychologically does not mess with them for the next 8 conference games. I think 8 for MEAC, 8 conference games. How that will mess with them. I'm a proponent of going back to the classics, figuring out, getting major sponsorships to generate dollars in that capacity, as opposed to, putting our kids out there in scenarios that are not favorable. Now, we did see A&T beat Kent State in 3 overtimes. And, we look at the scenario with Grambling against Arizona. If Kincaid doesn't get hurt, Grambling probably beats Arizona, in all honesty.
Yes, sir.
And, you have those instances. But they're not, I don't think the playing fields are equal, because you look at a University of Michigan who could possibly just use maybe the parking fees to give you that $700,000 from one game. But, the concessions, the ticket sales, they pay, $175 a ticket against Ohio State for 100,000, and they're going to seat 100,000 people in that stadium.
Yes,
they're not going to miss that. They're not going to miss $650 that they're going to give.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Brother Brownlow, would you say it'd be better off for these institutions to possibly just make a donation to an FCS school rather than to play them?
I don't even want the donation. I know that sounds kind of radical, because I just don't like that whole idea of them just giving. I honestly think that we have a brand and we have a product, apparently, that's legitimate, because ESPN has invested in our institutions on 2 fronts, with the MEAC SWAC Challenge as well as the Celebration Bowl. It's apparent there's a demand for it. And we have to buy into that concept, to go back to valuing the brand, as well as saying or coming to terms with the fact that we have something to really offer. We look at the kid who's the starting defensive tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's from South Carolina State. We look at the young man who's the left tackle with the Saints. He's from UAPB. I mean, so we have the starting tight end for the Giants, who's from Grambling. You got Chester Rogers, who's at the Colts. So it's apparent that we are producing players that can compete on the next level. And so I don't know if we need to get enamored and sort of like overwhelmed with trying to go to those schools and ask for money or to be their practice session.
Well, you just set up the best scenario coming up right now. And I've been on record for saying this. Would you be in favor of the SWAC and the MEAC coming together to create a super conference, if you will, among HBCUs?
I don't know if I would necessarily. I'm fine with I'm fine with their statuses right now as MEAC and SWAC. And I wonder if it would be too costly, because let's say, hypothetically, if we're going to go as far west as you there in Texas, Prairie View in Texas Southern, right? So you got to come back all the way around over here to Delaware. And so that's a lot of money on just travel. That's a lot of money, just trying to get, back and forth. And culturally, there are differences. There are cultural differences that are, in play as well when you think about, MEAC and SWAC football. And so I like the idea of the Celebration Bowl for both conferences to remain as they are currently. But I think our biggest thing is, and I think the MEAC has, they're in a more favorable scenario in the sense of, the corporate donors, being closer to the institutions on this side.
Okay, that's why I want to go right there. When you talk about buy-in, you talk about not taking the money from the school. I'm not sure if that stand out. We have our hands out. It doesn't look good. You got to give up some money. Some say, well, give us the money because the players that once couldn't go there, they're going there now, and they're siphoning off the players that will be going to the HBCUs, whether the MEAC, SWAC, or the other private schools. But whether it's a super conference or whether it's the SWAC by itself or the MEAC by itself, the other thing is where would the money come from? You got to get the dollars. If they became a super conference name, then but the attendance, for example, in the Celebration Bowl, how much money was given out? What was the payoff in that bowl? Probably the cheapest of all the bowls they had. What did the schools come away with? Somebody said a couple $100,000 a piece, or less. How much they gonna do for?
Oh, Mr. Hall, every school in the conference got $100,000.
Yes.
Right.
I was going to say it was $1.4 million, I believe, was given for that Celebration Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me verbatimly on that, but it was somewhere in that neighborhood.
And you're right, Dr. Prince. But I think, Mr. Hall, where we have to get is, it's like with anything. You know, when you bring something to the table,
okay,
and you bring a value to the table, because what people are not acknowledging is there were more people at that Celebration Bowl than there were at a number of the FBS Bowls, the mid-major bowls.
Yes, sir.
So now when negotiation time comes back again, it's time for us to sit down at the table and talk about that, to get our analytics and say, hey, this is what we did. Not only, you know, from a ticket perspective, but for the city of Atlanta.
Pause just for a second, gentlemen, because you are right on it, Brother Brownlow. You are so on it. Do you know for the last 4 consecutive years that the Southwestern Athletic Conference has been the #1 conference in attendance for FCS schools?
Exactly.
You understand? The #1 conference in attendance. And when the deal comes down, as you said, you take these numbers and you go back to the negotiating table and says, we're doing this because there was the Piney Woods Bowl that they hold down at NRG that they put a lot of hype in between Stephen F. Austin and Sam Houston. This was a couple of years before Texas Southern and Prairie View relocated the Labor Day Classic. And the local media was trying to trash how the people were not coming to the game when you were having 40,000, 50,000 people coming to this game at NRG Stadium. Now, that does not look like a lot in a 72,000-seat stadium, but this Piney Wood Bowl was having 15,000 and 20,000 people showing up, and they're saying what a great turnout it was. So, you know, that's that kind of sleight of hand stuff that we have to overcome, and this is not the radical side, but I can relate with you, Brother Brownlow. You don't have to tell me something, and I was a witness in that game at the Piney Wood, and I know what I saw, and sometimes the numbers they report is not what's actually there.
Exactly, Dr. Prince. And even when we sit down and consider the SWAC championship game, since they have relocated it to Houston, consistently, the numbers are there. The crowds are there. Consistently. Since that game has been relocated. Why? Because Houston embraced the game. Birmingham never embraced the game. In addition, Houston has more to offer than Birmingham does.
Well, you know that the mayor of Houston, Sylvester Turner, has been doing a real sweet courtship of trying to get the SWAC office to relocate to Houston. You do know that, right?
I did not know that.
Yes, sir. And when you look at it, the basketball championship is held at the Toyota Center. Where is that? In Houston, Texas. You just talked about the football championship for the SWAC. It's at NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas. Whether you gentlemen knew this or not, the soccer championship will be hosted on the campus of Prairie View A&M University this year. The track and field championship will be hosted on the campus of Prairie View A&M University this year. There are the bowling championship is going to be in the near future being hosted on the campus of Prairie View A&M University. So there are a lot of things that would make common sense, but then you got to be conscious of your brothers and sisters from Alabama, Mississippi, and Arkansas, because then you got almost threatened, would it make those schools in those areas lose interest in the championship game in a particular year that your team is not in the hunt. Right now, I guess geographically, Birmingham does make a little sense, but if we're talking about moving forward as a conference, then Houston is the big picture.
I guess what I'm trying to find out, what is it netting? Who is benefiting? The biggest game you have was the biggest sports, the revenue sports they call is going to be football. Well, in basketball, they're scaling back. This time they're going to have the top 4 teams going to travel to the top 4 teams going to host in basketball now in the SWAC tournament. It's going to be kind of like the play-in game. All the 10 teams won't be going to Houston anymore or to the SWAC tournament anymore. And the biggest reason for that is to cut back on cost. So I'm trying to find out where's the benefit. If you got a benefit here, then why is the basketball tournament teams cutting back?
So your question was, is it benefiting financially to be in Houston?
Yeah, I mean the whole entire SWAC and all the SWAC athletics. Because the SWAC tournament, again, past few years, all 10 teams will go to the SWAC tournament. This year coming up, they won't have it that way. You end up with about four teams there, or 8 teams, girls and men and women. Because again, the top 4 will host the bottom 4, and 2 left out completely. Right. That's usually that is our NC tournament, so to speak. That's the big dance. Yes, sir. Have 1 team go out of that.
Yes, sir. And I understand why they did it. I don't necessarily agree with why they did it. To invite all schools to participate. To me, I'm not a big component on participation awards. Because if you keep it in that format, it does not put any emphasis on the regular season. It does nothing for you to even put forth an effort during the regular season. The regular season is just going to be a warm-up to mix and match my players to see who I'm going to roll with come tournament time. So to go back to this format, it does make sense competitive-wise.
Well, in tournament time, anything can happen. You can be on the bottom. In basketball, during the tournament, you come in and you can end up win the championship. I've seen that happen with in the championship ball game. Valley State women went in one time. They were number 8, Alabama State number 1. The Valley made it to the championship game in the tournament. Jackson State had lost only 1 SWAC ball game. 1 year Grambling was on the very bottom. Grambling went in there and knocked Jackson State off.
Well, and I understand that, but if we're talking about the bigger picture and going back to what Brother Brownlow was talking about as far as the branding, why he's not in favor of the money games.
Okay.
If we have an automatic bid for our champion to go to the NCAA tournament, wouldn't you want your best possible team to represent your conference?
Well, you would want that, and more times than not, that would happen. But at the same time, I don't think you should eliminate others that have the possibilities. You're in this one and done deal.
Well,
some teams get hot and they go all the way.
Well, it goes back to the emphasis of earning your way to the tournament. I don't buy into the fact that every school should have made the tournament, because where's the motivation in that during the regular season?
Celebrating with your conference.
Celebrating.
Celebrating. Going.
I'll give you a ticket. I'll give you a ticket. In fact, I'll give you free tickets. If you got 15 ball players, I give you 20 free tickets. I give you 30 free tickets for your coaches and their spouses. And welcome whoever. Welcome Prairie View. They didn't make it this year. Maybe next year, Prairie View. Watch and learn. You can celebrate with us like that. But
what about the other schools? All the other people that are going to the tournaments.
All the other people that are going to the tournament. Once again,
all the other conferences.
Yeah. Well, once again, I can't really concern myself with what other conferences are doing, because if we're going to talk about that, the table is never really balanced when it came to us as a body.
But I'm thinking also about the student experience. You often hear ADs and coaches and presidents talk about that student experience. That's one of the reasons they have it at the Toyota Center. Their student experience. Whether that's the big picture, I assume.
Well, you know what? They can get an experience, and there's enough time in the schedule. If they really want that experience, Brother Hall, I would rather go ahead, instead of going to these quote-unquote money games, as referred to by Brother Brownlow, let's have a preseason tournament and give everybody an open invitation to play, and then that'll motivate you through the regular season so you can go to the big dance.
Okay. I got you. Back to the money games. What is going to replace the money games? If you can't get the money game, what's going to replace them? You have schools, a lot of schools, saying, I don't want my kids to go out there and get beat up and they'll play around. But at the same time, for example, Coach Cummings said he would, coming out of the Jackson State ball game, he would rather go and play another SWAC school because the team's still on the uptick concerning their play. But he said it's on the schedule. We got to go, and they got to go for the money. The benefit of Valley State this year is they have two money games. With the power of Prairie View in the SWAC, yet they play Texas Southern, Texas A&M, brother, for a money game, $450,000. So all of them need the money to some level. Although Prairie View, Jackson Southern might be on another level when it comes to their budget compared to Valley State budget. But in the scheme of things, they need the money.
No doubt, no doubt. The money is needed, and I understand where Brother Brownlow is coming from as far as you talking about damaging your brand, and but then there's also going back to my youth days when we used to watch the wide world of sports, the agony of defeat. At least for the first 5 minutes or so of that contest, you got that tingle down on the inside that something magical could happen today. And then, of course, reality will set in and the inevitable will happen. But it's something about that thrill of when you can remember when Michigan lost that big game at the Big House against Appalachian State. You know, on paper, that's what you call a yawner game, a wink game. You know, do I really want to go to this game because we're supposed to handle it? And then you witness that. So that's the thrill of competing, you know. And if you notice anything about those games are always early morning games. Always early morning games. And I always say, to me, that's one of those offsets of trying to give that little nudge, if they can, to the quote-unquote underdog.
Well, but Dr. Prince, you know, and Mr. Hall, my thing is, it's almost like it's like the Welfare Reform Act to me. At some point, they're going to snatch these games away, and if you get so dependent upon them when they snatch them away, because you really have no control. The Big Ten has already taken measures. Stop. You know, I think the only schools that are able to play like 1AA schools or FCS schools now are like, you know, Maryland, the new entries into the Big Ten. But Michigan, you know, the older, you know, the institutions that were there and that have been there, they fall up under this umbrella where they can't play 1AA schools. So when you start there, you know, other conferences are going to stop subscribing to this as well. And so you're going to get into a scenario where you're dependent upon something that's going to get snatched away that you really have no control over. And that's the only thing I'm saying we need to move away from that from a financial perspective. Because at some point, it's going to get snatched away from us. And we're going to find ourselves in a bind, as opposed to being creative at this point, establishing our brand, whether it's a classic, whether it's, identifying some major sponsorships, being more creative in regards to generating dollars. We got to work. We got to, again, invest. We got to invest the time into, coming up and being creative, because our brand is valuable. If our brand was not if our brand was not valuable, ESPN would not mess with us.
Absolutely. Here. We just witnessed a game this past weekend, the Cotton Bowl at the State Fair Classic in Dallas, Texas. 53,000 plus people showed up for that game. And on average, the tickets were, I believe, $35 or $40 a ticket. Okay?
Yes.
That was a proud moment to be established in. It's a proud moment when you... Go ahead.
How long have you been playing that ball game?
Huh?
How long have y'all been playing that game at the Cotton
Bowl? That was the 93rd edition. So 93 years of that game being played. As a matter of fact, it is on record. It is on record that State Fair Classic was where the inception of Monday Night Football came from, because that game used to be played on a Monday night. Okay. Used to be played on a Monday night, and at one time it was Grambling and Langston, then it was Prairie View and Grambling and Prairie View and Langston, but it's been consistently Grambling and Prairie View meeting at that State Fair Classic for the majority of those 93 years. And it is a wonderful event. For the past, I guess, 4 or 5 years, I've had the joy, and I say this in all sincerity, with the limited booth section, I've been broadcasting, with the exception of this year, but for the past 4 or 5 years, on the very top, on the rooftop, where you can see everything, just a beautiful view. And I was up there with the snipers, and having just casual conversation with them, they were saying, we really enjoy this game. I said, well, what makes this game so enjoyable? They said, because the people don't act unruly at all. The people are good-spirited people, and we have no problem. This is a day of leisure for us to be at that game. The same game, or the same stadium, the Cotton Bowl, where Texas plays Oklahoma, what they call the Red River Classic or the Red River Shootout, he says they are constantly working because people are drunk, people are fighting, and this, that, and the other. And as an alumni, I felt so proud to hear that being said, and to see not only can we come together, but we know how to act when we come together and still raise money.
Okay. Yes. Gotcha. And so, and Dr. Prince, that's what I'm referencing. The mere fact that you can put 52,000 in there. Alabama A&M, Alabama State going to put about 70,000 in Legion Field. When Jackson State plays Jackson State plays Southern in Jackson this year, you're going to get 50. When Grambling goes to Southern, when Grambling and Southern play in New Orleans, you're probably going to get 50. So you take those moments and you capture those moments and you brand that in the conference, on the conference website.
Yes. Via
Twitter, via Facebook, via IG. It's there. If we, and to reference a point that Mr. Hall made earlier about when Coach Morgan was at Valley, he was talking about putting bottoms in those seats. When you can show folks, you can put 50,000 people, that's 50,000 customers.
Yes. Yes.
When you can present that to Coke gonna listen.
Yes.
When you can present that, to whatever entity, when you have 70,000 individuals in one particular setting, a vendor is going to listen to you. That is power.
Yes.
When you say, you alluded to this earlier, that the SWAC is the leading, for the past 4 years, the leading conference in FCS, that is something you take to corporations and you present that information. Those analytics are legitimate analytics.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No doubt about it. Don't want people to get distracted. We are on the Mike Prince Show. We have been dialoguing, and a very good, enriching dialogue, I might add. Brother Hall and Brother Brownlow, by way of Greenwood, Mississippi, and, of course, the D.C. area, and we're located here in Texas. We're just talking about the HBCU experience, if you will. We've covered the gamut from Mississippi Valley to Prairie View to the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and to taking its own games and branding and creating even more classic games, if you will. Now, Brother Brownlow, I want to ask you this question in particular. I want you to put on your marketing hat just for a second. And okay. I want you to give me a cliff note plan of how we are to elevate this brand that we call the HBCU brand.
Oh, I have it. Okay. Michael Strahan, Jerry Rice, Steve McNair, Jimmy Smith, Eddie Robinson. Now, all of these guys played NFL. All of them been to Super Bowl. Barlow from Alabama State. You take these gentlemen and you put pictures of them on your website and state something as simple as this, that they played in this conference. You start there. You can talk about, maybe that 1991 class or 92 class, was it? 91 class, 91, 92, where Strahan, Ambrose, Jimmy Smith, Eddie Robinson, Barlow, all of these guys graduated. All these guys were drafted that year. And you can start giving a historical perspective. Then you throw the Walter Payton, you throw the Mel Blunts, you throw, what's his name, Jackie, is it Slater? Yeah, you
yes,
throw
sir.
Slater. I mean, you promote that history. And then you start showing the venues of Prairie View opening up their stadium, playing Texas Southern. Then you show the Alabama State. And now that Southern has put that new turf there in their facility. Beautiful backdrop. And you show the Cotton Bowl. You show the down in New Orleans. You show
the Bayou Classic. The Bayou Classic.
Yeah, I just had a mental freeze on that. But yeah, and you paint the picture, and then you say too, you close your announcement out saying, "Now, don't you want to be a part of this?"
Anthony, I think you take that same idea, same scheme, same method, and I think you got to take it out to the high schools too. I think everybody got to see that, because the athlete first going to come from the high schools before they start going to the colleges. And many times they say, I want to go to the big schools because I got a better chance of going to the pros. That's what they say. So you got to get them from the high schools and to the HBCUs.
Now you're hitting on something. Now, and in all fairness, Brother Brownlow, that's a great marketing plan to get people to invest in our brand, and our conference. Excellent point. Now, to get that young man or woman to show a stronger, viable interest in our HBCUs in particular, when you go to the NFL alone, it was some ridiculous number that the Southwestern Athletic Conference had somewhere between 20 or 23% of its Hall of Famers that came out of the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
Yes.
The NFL. So when you're talking about a brilliant marketing plan, not only for that high school student, but even for that one with the corporate dollar. You get the images of I want to say Mel Blunt and all these other guys that came through the SWAC. And what you say, what do these men have in common? Well, number one, they're in the Hall of Fame. And then what do these men have in common? These X amount of men played in the Super Bowl. And then the last thing, what did they have in common? They all came from the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
Yes.
Who will you be next?
Yes.
Will you be next? As a young kid, you mean to tell me that one of the best receivers in all of the NFL was down there at Urbana, Mississippi? That you talking about that school they call the Valley? He went there.
Yeah.
You know, and you know who I'm thinking of right now, Brother Hall?
Who's that?
Booker Chambers.
Okay.
Booker Chambers is a special young man, in my opinion. He's a special young man. And I believe if he stays healthy and it appears he has a great head on his shoulder, he will be the next face to represent the NFL out of Valley. That's just my own personal opinion. That's my own personal opinion. And y'all didn't have to pay me to say that.
I like the idea, though, the Anthony heads are going after the corporate dollars. So that'll make up for a lack of attendance if you don't have it right then. Get those sponsors to come in there. You can start the classic. You can do basketball classic. You can do. I don't like the idea of having a national black championship. If you can have the money running out of everywhere for the NCAA tournament, then why can't you put another tournament on? They have other tournaments out there too, but I don't see a black tournament going on. Not for the sake of being black, just a black tournament, but a way to get some dollars to go back to those universities that could help the university as a whole, in particular the athletic program, because again, that's the window to the universities.
Well, you want to talk about something. We've talked about corporate dollars, and Brother Hall, you know I'm a big advocate of you leave no stone unturned. Majority of the institutions that we're speaking of, in particular the Southwestern Athletic Conference, are within small rural communities. Majority. Right. And don't forget the mom and pop operations, where you could create a sponsor a child. You can create a package, and I believe you could really do away and get away with this. If you're talking about exposing the brand and giving people within a community a feel for what it's like to experience, and you'll be surprised at the people who've never experienced a Prairie View game, a Valley game, a Jackson State game that are within a 10-mile radius of that institution itself. But you create a youth program that, and you could factor this thing in. You get with your concessions people for $20 that will give you a kid's admission under 15, 13, whatever the age limit you want to set. For that $20, that kid gets in. He gets a wristband or whatever he gets, and with that wristband, he's entitled to a hot dog and a drink. Okay, so he can be, they can be fed during the process of that game. And let every kid that's involved in the Pop Warner game or whatever, let them wear their uniform. And those that get to wear their jerseys, give them that halftime experience. Let them run up and down the field during halftime for 3 to 5 minutes to give them that experience of being on the quote-unquote big boys field, to build them up. And the next time that you have this game, you're talking about a marketing plan, and you can just do that once a year. Once a year. And maybe it might be a school that doesn't travel as well from within the conference, and you create that experience where they want to be a part of something. My son, our school district that I happen to be a part of, is 13% minorities, African Americans, 53% Hispanic, and the other 30-some-odd% is Anglo-Saxon. Well, for the past few years, my son would invite some of his baseball teammates, basketball teammates, who don't look like us. We invite them to the Prairie View experience. I buy 10, 12 tickets. Let them come and experience this for themselves so they don't listen to what their mama and what their daddy or what their granddaddy and their great-granddaddy had to say about my school. You experience it for yourself, and it never fails. Those kids rush straight to the bookstore so they can buy something that has Prairie View A&M on it, and their lives, or at least for that moment, changed forever on what they thought Prairie View was, what they thought a Valley was, or any other HBCU. But once again, it takes that initiative and sometimes thinking outside the box to get people aware that we have something that is worthwhile.
Yes,
well,
sir.
It's fall. I got to run. I got to sign some papers for travel.
Yes.
So I got to run. I appreciate that. I'll tell you what. We have not only a historic conference, but a rich conference in a lot of ways, and it's time for the country to recognize that. We talked about that. We didn't talk about academics because we all already know that that's first. Another thing too, we didn't talk about the band. So the HBCU experience also is really the band is right in there with you when you're talking about football. Let's go back a long time ago. The band got the recognition first. You all recall Brownlow, that Coca-Cola commercial?
Yes.
Right.
You all recall that?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
You can't do one without the other. So for that reason too, the football and the band get the corporate dollars to come in and help support that. You're not saying we don't want to say, well, you owe us yours. No, we deserve that. The same recognition.
Yes, sir.
And dollars that the other schools are getting. I
Yes, sir.
We deserve that.
Brother Brownlow, anything you want to share before we shut this segment down, sir?
Well, Dr. Prince, Mr. Hall, I am grateful that you all have invited me in, and I'm happy that this platform is out there to promote our institutions, and hopefully some ideas have been stimulated from this exchange. If there are future opportunities for me to participate, please extend another invitation, and I would be receptive to that as well. I do think that we have a brand that is valuable. And as I mentioned throughout the course of the conversation, it is apparent because ESPN has invested. And that in itself tells me that, not only do we recognize that our brand is significant, but there is a corporate entity that recognizes that our brand is significant. And so I'm signing off on that, and again, thankful for the opportunity to participate in this conversation.
Well, Brother Brownlow, I want you to know that you don't need another invitation. It is an open invitation, sir. You are welcome at any time. Brother Hall, you know how I feel about you as well. Anytime that I can be of any assistance to either one of you brothers, consider it done. Thank you all so much for being a part of the Mike Prince Show. I'm Dr. Mike Prince. As always, we are about enhancing our community. We're serving the community through faith and athletics. And until the next time, be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
All right. Anthony, I'll call you tomorrow, Anthony, because I know you, it's about almost 11 in your area. So we'll talk tomorrow, and Mike, I'll call you back tonight when I make this run. Okay,
and brothers, that was a beautiful dialogue. It went longer than what I anticipated because it was good dialogue and it was genuine dialogue, and that's always great. So I appreciate both of you very much.
All right.
You all have a good night.